Welcome and thank you for joining us on the Child Care Business Coach podcast. My name is Evelyn Knight. I so appreciate you taking your time out of your day to listen and subscribe to my podcast. I know your time is valuable. So I love to bring you guys content that is really just worth your time. And today's podcast episode is really, really important for us in the early childhood field. All professionals, whether you're a teacher, a director, an owner, or you work on policy, this is something we all really need to be focusing on today. And we really need to make a part of our everyday career lives. So today I am joined with Dr. Mary Ann Shallcross Smith from Rhode Island. And Marianne, I will let you introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity too to be on the podcast. This is my very first podcast. I've done a lot in life, but never a podcast. It's pretty interesting. I'm Ann Shallcross Smith, and I have been a childcare owner in Rhode Island for 48 years. And the reason I know it's 48 years is because that's how old my son is. I was like 19 years old, had a baby, and said to my mom, I think she was 39 at the time. And I said, Mom, can you babysit? And she's like, honey, you've been married for a year or more. She said, and your sister and brother are getting married, so I'm starting my career. And I said, Mom, I'm 20 years old. I go, and you're going to be 40 years old. I said, so Mom, you're too old to begin your career. So I have eaten those words from the day I turned 39 forward. And here I stand, the childcare owner, probably the most amazing profession I've ever had in my entire life. I was going to be a fourth grade teacher, but started a home-based daycare because I literally could not find childcare for my son, and grew it into, I have 17 childcare centers today in Rhode Island.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So every time I do an interview, I give a shout out to my son. I'm like, Keith, you and I have been together from the time I was 20. I said, you've been with me this journey all the way. And he's pretty proud of it. He actually works in the childcare himself, and it's a family business. And my two sons do all the maintenance, and they're happy doing the maintenance. And my daughter now is a COO, and I'm trying to talk her into becoming the CEO, so I can spend more time working on all these advocacy issues that are so needed in childcare.
So absolutely needed. So you and I are very similar. I actually started, I've been in childcare for 20 years, but I started my second business in my 40s also. Oh, wow. So this business, the podcast, the coaching end of things. And basically I really started it because my passion and my goal in life is to make sure that all children have the opportunity to attend high quality research-based centers, regardless of their socioeconomic status. And so an owner myself as a childcare center owner, but I really needed to find a way to broaden that perspective. Yes. So I started the podcast, then I started my coaching company, and I have a YouTube channel and whatnot. And really my overall goal is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. Advocacy is really the avenue for what needs to happen in order for all children to get that quality that they all deserve. And currently, if you look at the statistics, under 20% of children in the United States are in a quality childcare program. Right. Yep. And so that's why we really, really need to focus on the advocacy work.
And one of the things you said about zip codes, I want to say zip codes. And I was a former school committee member, and children in their district, and keep in mind how little Rhode Island is, we can get from one end to the other end probably within an hour and 10 minutes. We're very lucky. We have a lot of access to our legislators too, which is great. But however, in childcare, a zip code, there is no zip codes, because mom and dad might choose childcare close to their business. They might choose childcare on the way to their business, or they might choose childcare right in their neighborhood. And that's truly what I love about early child education. Parents don't have to say, okay, I live in this town, I have to send my child to the school per se. They can choose any early childhood facility that meets and fits their needs. And as we know, there's many different educational processes when it comes to the early childhood profession.
Right. And that's one of the things I love about early childhood versus like the K through 12 system, which is one thing I'm really hoping that the public sector doesn't change, as I do think we need more help. Absolutely. We need more funding. But I love the fact that, like you're saying, parents can choose, which in turn helps us to keep that quality high. The competition is a healthy thing. I have people who come to my childcare center. They actually drive from the neighboring town 30 minutes to drop off then they drive back home to their hometown to go to work. And so they're doing an hour commute just to get their children to my center because of that quality piece, which is where, like what you were saying with zip codes, it's so nice that they get to make that decision for themselves.
It's a wonderful thing in the childcare, because once that family makes that decision where they want their child to attend childcare and early education programs, the bottom line, it's a win-win. It's a win-win for the childcare facility, the home base. It's also a win-win for the family, because they are going to speak positively about the environment their child's in. Like, my child doesn't have to go to the school. I chose the school for my child. So I see that's a very different perspective. And also, as you said, it definitely connects with competition. Keeps everyone raising the bar all the time.
Yep.
You need to do this in early childhood.
Yes. If you want to make it financially and keep those seats filled, then you do need to raise that quality, which should be our number one priority, doing what's best for the children.
It's interesting because for so many years I've been in the profession, and as I said, my daughter's running my business, so she comes up with, she's in her early 40s, so she comes up with these amazing ideas. We have a team of like 250 staff, and about 3 or 4 years ago, she came up with a computer system that she was going to communicate. The teachers were going to communicate daily with the parents and send them computer messages. I'm like, that's where I realized I was a great grandmother. I'm like, we can't do that. Everyone needs face-to-face conversation. And she's like, Mom, people like the computer too. We can do both. I'm like, I don't want people reading about their children. I want people talking about their children. And I said, go for it. It's your idea. I already got I already had my playbook. I said, so I go for it. And then we instituted a program. We call it Tadpoles. There's already them out there. And the emails and the parents are calling, oh my God, this is so wonderful. She goes, see, Mom? So, you really got to keep that competition. And that's what the families wanted. And it's been a success ever since we instituted,
Well, unfortunately, we live in a day and age where everybody commutes differently. Some love text messages, some love email, some are on social media. And then some like what, we actually use something similar to Tadpoles also. We use a different program, but it's similar. And, but you're absolutely right. You got to have everything, but you can't, that face-to-face is so important also, but you have to have
a little bit of both.
Yes, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about your work on the state legislature. I absolutely love that you're an ECE person and you took advocacy to the next level by becoming a part of Rhode Island's state legislature. So tell me about that journey and what made you decide to take that leap?
The reason I chose to take that leap is, once again, Rhode Island is the size. It's an amazing size, and the legislature is really convenient to get to. It's like 5 miles from my house, maybe the longest, maybe 30 miles from someone else's home. And why I chose the leap is, for all these years that I've been in the childcare profession, when we go to community meetings, when we go to state meetings, there's always a legislature at the table. Yes. And there's also a department head at the table. So we get to know each other very well. And actually, after all the years, you start talking to the same people at the same time.
Yes.
And one thing I totally realized is we needed someone, and we had people. Trust me, we had people at our state house doing a great job, but we needed someone who knew the business of childcare.
Yes.
The whole ins and outs of childcare. So as much as they were advocating, they wanted it the whole bit. Nobody inside the state rep, no one inside the House of Representatives really understood the business of childcare. Realize how it works, what the cost is. And once again, it's at the tip of my thing is I can get the answer very quickly. So that's one of the reasons I became very connected with a lot of the legislators. Always showed up since the middle 80s. I started showing up at the State House to testify on legislation for bills, because I realized when they put a piece of legislation in, it costs childcare centers a lot of time and money and energy, and to the point that, and it's a good bill. Don't get me wrong. When you look back at it, that teachers had to have a certain inoculation for a flu.
Yes, right.
And guess what? Then we had a track, and the teachers didn't get it. We had to let them go. So there was a lot behind it. And I just felt that we could have been there having a conversation on this. They would have been able to add things into the law that would have made it easier on the business side, as well as protect the students, as well as protect the families and the staff too. So they need that expertise right from the professional in that category. That's kind of why I got involved.
Exactly. And I couldn't agree with you more. I actually do. I testify for our state legislature, also do a lot. And I was telling you that I am the VP of public policy for Nevada's AEYC. And that's pretty much same thing for me. I just knew we need that business person. And we hear it all the time. I have so many connections in this industry throughout the nation where people are always complaining about, well, why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? But what a lot of owners and directors don't understand and see is that that's because we're not speaking up. They don't know what we need unless there's people like you and I out there who are testifying, who are giving that perspective. But honestly, like when I go to in Nevada here, when I was going and whenever I testify or the things that I do, I'm the only owner I see. The rest of it are people who are in the government already and they don't know our private experiences. They have no idea.
And they are putting the best of what they know from, knowledge that they've heard, but they have never lived it. They have never done it. So when the piece of legislation gets put out, it's like it's missed. There's a whole bunch of holes.
Yeah. So, they truly don't understand. They're doing the best they can. They have the best intentions, but they don't understand. And I came to the conclusion one day that I realized they need to hear the voice of somebody who is signing the paychecks. They need to know that person who's actually paying these bills, signing the paychecks, and understands the business end of childcare. And from a quality perspective too, not just the business, but like that, all of those pieces.
Right. I'm so proud of Rhode Island and I know it's across the United States, but June 1st, when our governor asked us to go back to work, June 1st to open up our doors with March, April, and May. And June 1st, I asked us to go back, and my child care staff came back and opened the doors, and we literally have across the United States, we have childcare has kept the United States working.
Yes, we have
for the parents to go back to work, and we had little children. Our staff was still wearing masks. I'm sure
yes,
you are also. But the energy and time and commitment our teachers have made and administrators have made is absolutely amazing in this pandemic. So I just want to give them a shout out.
Yes, I agree.
The other thing you're saying, I want to pick up on. You're like me, okay? Yeah, I'm out there testifying, and we have, like I said, because of the size of Rhode Island, we have more people. But it's very, very important that legislators hear from the business owners. You said you're right on target, and one's wonderful. So we want to say thank you very much. But if you can get a team of people, that way they know for like every one person might be 100. The more team people you get in there, honestly, if I can get one message across, please just take that moment to call, or now it's just an email.
Even just an email.
To your legislator. It means a lot. I look at mine every single day, and I see how many people and what people are really looking at from safety of guns to the climate. It's very important that you can get more and more people in the early childhood profession to get in touch with their local representatives and senators.
Absolutely. And just to help them understand, because they're making these decisions without having the full picture, and they don't have the entire perspective that we have. And so helping them to see our perspective and to really giving them that insight into our world is really all they need a lot of times to really just open their eyes. I know I was lucky enough to be chosen to be interviewed by Senator Catherine Cortez Masto. And it really helped here in Nevada, just when the CARES Act grant came out, just making sure that we had the money to sustain during the pandemic. And so we all have these opportunities. We just have to put ourselves out there. They want to hear from us. Right. They really do. Like you want to hear from your constituents, but we have to make sure they know we're there.
I'll give you a great example that happened probably in the last month. And once again, I was a family child care provider for 20 years and a center for nearly another 30. So I see all aspects of child care.
Yes.
And I was having a conversation with one of the decision makers in the last probably month. And they say, why do you need a rate increase for school age, after school care? And I gave all the reasons why we needed it. Mm-hmm. Certainly, number one is to pay the staff better money. They deserve $20 to $25, not 12 to 15. That's just horrible. And they go, well, that seems like enough. And I just had to bring, because I know the profession. I need to let you know, if you're a home daycare provider, a licensed home daycare provider on Rhode Island, you make more for tuition a week on a school age kids than a center does. And the eyes widened, and I'm like, yeah. I go, and doing home daycare, you put the lights on, you got to put the lights on for your family. Workers' comp is a different conversation. Mm-hmm. Where you're an institution, you're a facility, you have to pay business insurance. You have to pay, square footage. It's another facility. You have
Yes.
to put the lights on, all, and that
You're paying salaries, right? Yes.
So anyway, it was a wide, because that information would not have come to that decision maker if I wasn't able to make that comparison.
Right.
And it's
right.
like all of a sudden, like, okay, if home days care kids make it in Rhode Island, we can get school age hopefully up to that number too.
Right.
So,
And what people don't understand, and I know I'm sure you've experienced too, as an owner, people look at your school and they will ask me things like, how many children do you have enrolled?
Yes.
And then they'll ask me, well, what are your tuition rates? And then they're calculating it in their heads.
Right.
Oh, well, if she has that many kids and this is what she charged, oh my gosh, she's just raking it in. She's bringing in what they don't see is the overhead in childcare is so high.
I have experience of that many, many times, and I just give them my budget. I'm like, here's my budget.
That's what I do too.
I go, it's kind of embarrassing what my teachers make and what I make as an owner. And as my daughter said, Mom, if you're passionate about this, it's your passion. I said, so, but I have nothing to hide, trust me. I said, you can ask me any question you want, but my weight. So the bottom line is, this is what the childcare industry is making at this point.
And I've done the same thing. I'm more than happy to turn in my P&Ls. They can see my balance sheet. I am an open book. I've done the same exact thing where I've actually taken like, do you want to know what it's like? Here you go. And I'm a successful childcare center. This is what success looks like in our industry. Exactly. And when they see that, they're just like, wow, I thought, they literally think that we're really making a very healthy, killing off of it. So
we're not even as close as superintendents of schools. We're not the corporations who are making millions for their CEOs. We're just making a living. And
we do. Yes.
It's a living. And it's
because it's our passion. It's our passion. It's what we love to do. People don't, we don't get into this industry to become millionaires for sure. No. So let's talk a little bit about meal programs. My center stayed open through the entire pandemic. We were one that stayed open. I was averaging 115 children a day, and we literally went from a Friday having 115 children in attendance to the following Monday, we were down to 27. Part of the reason that when I had to make that decision to stay open, it was really, really a hard decision to make. But my child care centers we care for foster children. We care for children who are high risk a lot of times. And there was a couple children who came to my mind, and all I could see were these faces. And I just thought to myself, what are they going to eat if I'm not there? How are they going to be? Because I know we are part of the food program here in Nevada. And so we're feeding them breakfast, lunch, and it's, I actually feed breakfast, lunch, and 3 snacks a day. But I also know that when they're not with us, these children aren't getting the food. And so that was one of the biggest decision-making considerations I took was there. And it's kind of ironic. I mean, there's 2 children that came to my mind, but still those 2 children were enough that it really just got to me in the fact that how are their parents going to feed them 7 days a week at home if we're not providing that? So let's talk about meal programs throughout the nation and how, like in the public school system, K through 12, the children are fed. I saw school buses going out, making sure the children were getting lunch during the pandemic, right? But what about these children 0 to 5 who are sometimes forgotten? I feel like they are like the forgotten children sometimes, especially 0 to 3.
I totally agree with you. And I think we really need to make it a lot easier for the child care facilities to be able to get reimbursed for the food for the children. We also feed breakfast, lunch, and the afternoon snack too as part of our curriculum and food services. However, unfortunately, and as a family daycare provider, I know if you're automatically a part of the percentage to get fed for the CCAP program, and then nonprofits can also bill, but there are profit facilities, and we chose to be profit. I have 10 in 7 centers that are nonprofit, so I balance both of them. So what we find is 25% CCAP children, like we said, there's no zip code here. If a parent wants to go across the street or across the town to do another childcare, we would like to give them the same exact services that they would get anywhere. But that 25%, if you have twins or triplets, Leva, I'm keeping it simple, that 25% could go to 20%. And then for that month, you can't bill. But still, the cost of food for their children, that childcare, has gone toward that business. Right. So there's really no way you can really follow what the next year is going to look like in the food service visit. So I am
Right.
asking, and I'm working very closely with the senator in Rhode Island to see if he can take that 25% and maybe bring it down to 10%.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
It would be wonderful.
Yes.
Now I'm talking across the United States.
Yes.
So that's how I met you, because I saw
Yes.
you, and I'm like, okay, let's have a conversation about this. That would be fantastic to see what's going on in other states, and that was a connection. So I'm hoping to really get other states involved in this, so when it does get to the floor in Congress, that they can have a conversation at the state senators and state representatives, the federal representatives will have the conversation with bullet points to talk about this. So,
Right.
And that will really certainly help with food insecurity with children. We have
Absolutely.
had children come to our daycares, and we know they're hungry. We know they're hungry.
Right.
And the food's always there to give them. But once again, we have to have some support, as we all know, too. What they say, chicken went up $1 a pound in in a week and a half here.
Yeah.
So those aspects are something we needed to be able to get the federal government to get involved, to get
Right.
all childcare facilities, home-based centers, nonprofit, all in the same category as it relates to the federal food program, CCAP program.
Right. And I so agree with you. I was telling you when we first talked about how in my center, during that time, I actually lost my food program funding when it was at its worst. I went from 115 to 27 children, but a lot of those 27 children were like nurses. And, there were a few that the parents kept coming, like the two I was telling you about, but a lot of them didn't. And so I did fall under that 25% and I didn't get reimbursement. So now where my tuition is at its all-time lowest in my entire career, before we knew about the PPP, now I also lost that food program. And during that time, it was also one of the times where I stayed open to make sure children were getting fed. So we can't just stop, we can't just stop feeding these children. But I do see a lot of owners, and I talk to a lot of owners who choose not to do the food program because of that constant, the reapplying, you lose it this month. It's that unpredictability, which does make it very hard to budget.
Unpredictability is a great word. You can't budget, absolutely. And I really believe there will be more childcare providers in the profit category that will stop feeding children once that percentage change. 25%, I forgot how many years back it goes. It's been a very long time.
Right. And it does need to change. Yeah, I totally agree.
As an owner who owns 10 childcare facilities profit and manages 7 nonprofits, I look at their budgets all the time, and I pretty much identical budgets, completely identical budgets.
Yeah.
Except for the nonprofit, there's not a tax to be paid in the category. So
and you're doing the same work, right? Yeah.
Same exact work, same administrator, same exact children, the curriculum, everything's the same. The budget remains, and I've given that to my state, saying, look at these both budgets. It's the same exact budget. So you really have to understand that the kids would benefit from food being served every day.
And bottom line, that's what's really important, is what the outcomes for the children. That is the bottom line, what we really need to be focused on. So let's talk a little bit about what all my listeners, and then we are recording this too, so I can post it on YouTube so that my YouTube audience can watch this also. But let's talk about how we can make sure in all 50 states, we also have senators that understand the importance of this. So when a bill is proposed, what can my listeners do to make sure that once we can get a bill proposed, and once it is proposed, most importantly, once it is proposed, what do we need to do from there?
What I suggest is start working on your bills in the off session. So in other words, when the session's closed, we're January to June 30th. We might end up going into July, which is great. We'll do everything we can for the people. And come July 1st, I take 2 weeks off, and then I start working on my bills for the following January. Because within that 6 months for Rhode Island, in that 6 months, you have time to reach out to all the departments. You have time to pick a legislator, a senator, and a representative. You need to introduce the bill on both sides. And that time you can get all the language working. And then also, I find very important, now let's say the state rep has got to really advocate for your bill in committee. So what I have done before I became a state rep, I was one in 2008 to 10, and I'm back again as a freshman. It's a great grandmother freshman here. So what I've done all these years, because I had a great relationship with a lot of the state legislators too, is I always gave them talking points. So when the bill came up, there was 10 talking points that made sense. One of the talking points I had mentioned earlier was saying home-based daycare makes more money for school-age children than childcare centers. And that was a great talking point. So if they can pay Home-based daycare is this amount of money, then they get paid centers the same amount, or
Right.
maybe a bit
Yes.
higher. They had no idea about that. So that became a great talking point for them. Instead of saying, no, we can't afford that, we can't afford it, I go, you're already affording it. So give them talking points. And the other thing is, I have a wonderful marketing director. She's great. And that's my daughter, my finance team. I go, you got to keep this as simple as possible, because just because we know childcare doesn't mean the world knows childcare.
Right.
So when you give your senator or a rep a talking point, you need to back it up with more information, where it came from, why it's there, and why it's important. But honestly, they're probably going to use 3 or 4 of those talking points that they're going to feel very familiar with, and they can communicate that, because their job is to get the bill out of committee. And then once it's sitting in committee, usually about 2 or 3 months into the year, which was probably March or April now, and into May, that's when, I'm going to say clog up the cell phone. I'm suggesting that because I'm living that right now. So the bottom line, email your rep. And there's so many different techniques now that you can do it in a very easy way. It's
very so easy. Yes. Yes.
But trust me, your rep and senator are reading that. They're like, oh my God, I am not kidding. I think I stopped counting where I got well over 300 emails on gun safety.
Oh, wow.
That's a lot of emails. I know that means a lot to
a lot of people, right? Very eye-opening. Yeah, very.
And climate control was a couple of hundred more, and we're working on the child care bills now, and they're starting to roll into. But you need to get that advocacy. As you say, you're on the ECE board. Everyone who sits on that board is going to go back to their facilities and say, get the administrators and teachers and parents to send it out.
Right. Everybody involved to send it out.
Everybody involved.
Right.
My daughter went to all our administrators and said, email this. And then we certainly give the teachers a choice, because some of our teachers have their children right in their care, which is great. And then we just kind of post it for our parents. If you're interested here, you can take this. And some will and some won't. We never force it upon anyone. We make suggestions how important it is. We actually had one parent, which is the very first in my career, last month. We had one parent who actually went on a Zoom call, because we can't go to the state legislature right now to testify in person. So everything's being done over virtual. And the Senate president met with one of the parents in my daycare center, and it was a dialogue just like this, how important childcare was to. And then he took that and he put it on his website under Rhode Island.
Oh,
yeah. I opened up the Facebook. I'm like, wow, this is very interesting. And he got firsthand to hear how important childcare was for her, how important that we extend our hours, because we did go on short hours.
Yes.
And how important that her child every day gets food, because it's saving her time in the morning.
Right. Exactly.
It's one thing they have to it's a lot for parents to get up and go to work every day. It's a lot that they come home at the end of the day. So when they know their children are receiving nutritious food all day long, that gives them a little bit of hot concern too, that this is okay for my child. Yeah.
Yes. And that's my sister here in Nevada, she's actually a nurse working the COVID unit in one of the hospitals, and has been through the whole pandemic. And so I totally understand for her, it would be so hard. I mean, you're already under all this pressure. There's already so much coming at you. And then knowing that you can just drop your child off at, their childcare center, and they're fed breakfast, they're fed a nutritional lunch, plus the snacks, that's one less worry that these people have. That's one less,
worry.
Exactly. And even just any parent right now. I mean, there's so much pressure in our society right now that just one less thing, knowing that they are getting that balanced meal and everything is good for them. So I couldn't agree more. So in the show notes, I am going to include links for everybody. I think it was about a year ago, I did film. It's a video, actually. It's on my YouTube channel and my Facebook page on advocacy. It's how to advocate. So I will get the information off of those videos and attach it to these show notes. So for those of you listening, or if you're watching, because we are going to repurpose this recording for the video end that I do also. But you guys could just look at the show notes. I have all the information there on how do you find your state legislature representatives, how do you find your senators, and so that you can start contacting them via phone or email. So go ahead and check out the show notes. I'll also link the video that we did so that everybody out there can watch it. I was working with the Children's Advocacy Alliance, and we created a video together on how more professionals in ECE can advocate. So I will link that also in the show notes.
Honestly, your legislators want to hear from you. And
yes.
Really, I'm not the cliche about your voice, but make your voice into a text or make your voice, especially the best way is email. Absolutely. Right. They want to hear from you and they want to know what you need.
And even on social media, you could tagging them in your social media posts, posting on there. And I would really suggest do it all. Text, email, tag them in social media posts. Just make it a movement and make it contagious. Share this podcast episode with other professionals, so that they know the things we need to talk about. I know we talked about having you back on my podcast because there's just so much for us to talk about. So today, what I really would like my listeners to focus on is that meal program. Let's really work on that. And next, I think we'll start talking about wages. Like, how can we help our industry with wages? But right now, if we focus on one thing, and then, when I have you back again, we'll talk about wages.
Absolutely. If we could focus on this meal, changing that. And if any states are listening, they want to get in touch with you or I to have a conversation.
Absolutely.
I can share the information with my federal government too. And I'm hoping by this time next year that that will be changed and more children be able to get nutritious meals every day in their childcare. And that is such a big support to families.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. It's been so wonderful to have you. Do you have any last thoughts that you would like to add?
I would like to add thanks for having me on your podcast, and to all the families out there that use early childhood every day. You're very lucky, because I need to tell you, they're hardworking teachers and hardworking administrators, and they got their heart and soul into it. It's just a beautiful, beautiful environment as an early childhood classroom.
It really is. Thank you. Thank you once again for joining me today. I really do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to listen to my podcast. I wanted to let you guys know about a great opportunity I have coming up in October. I will be hosting my own conference. It's going to be the first annual Childcare Business Summit. My team put out a survey to you and my listeners and my Facebook viewers, and basically asked, what do you guys want out of a childcare summit? And what we heard from you was you wanted more business knowledge, just really learning how to run your business, less classroom management. So that is the first piece we're going to bring to you. Every session we have is going to be focused on the business part of running a childcare center. Second thing that you wanted was to have fun. After the pandemic, everybody just wants to get out and have fun. So we are going to do a lot of celebrating and have a lot of fun. In fact, one day we're going to actually take you guys up to beautiful Lake Tahoe so that we can just have a fun day up at the lake. The third thing that you asked for was not to have another conference that is all just sales and gimmick. You wanted to just come and learn, have a good time, but you didn't want to feel like you were being sold to the whole time. So that is exactly what we have put together for you. The conference is going to be in Reno, Nevada, towards the end of October. I will put the links in the show note so that you guys can check out my website for the summit, get more information. And if you're ready, go ahead and purchase a ticket. We're going to be doing this at the beautiful Atlantis Casino, Spa, and Resort in Reno, Nevada. So we're going to make sure you guys have a great time. The Atlantis is giving us a great discount for our members, so be sure to check it out. Buy your ticket now. It's going to be very limited. Since this is our first time doing it, I'm only going to have 50 live attendees. And if you want to bring your spouses or your business partner, that's also fine. But we're only selling 50 tickets. And to begin with, the tickets will be buy one, get one free. So make sure that you get on there. Purchase your ticket, book your room so that you can see me live in October. I cannot wait to meet you guys in person and just get to chat face to face. Have a great rest of your week, everybody.